Een van my gunsteling dinge om te doen as ek in die bos is om voëls te probeer roep met hierdie klankleser. En soms werk dit, maar nou lag ek altyd in my mou, want ek het nie idee wat hierdie klanke vir hulle beteken nie. Maar daar is gelukkig 'n navorser wat baie meer weet van voëlroepe en klanke, en veral bromvoëls.
Kyle Middleton en Carrie Hickman, beide verbonde aan die Fitzpatrick Instituut van Afrika Voëlkunde, doen die afgelope paar jaar al navorsing op bromvoëls in die Klaserie Privaat Natuurreservaat.
The more I know them, the more I realize that I don't know them, kind of thing. They're just these extremely intriguing, their own personalities, their own very weird aggressiveness, just the way they work. They're very intelligent. The way they do things is just unusual.
They're just so charismatic, and I think it's their intelligence as well. I've watched hours and hours of footage of the birds on these camera traps, and they're just incredible, and they've all got their unique personalities.
Kyle kyk spesifiek na die verskillende roepe van bromvoëls en wat dit beteken. En Carrie bestudeer weer temperatuurveranderinge in kunsmatige neste.
This is the best time for us, at least as researchers. During the winter, there's not a lot happening. The birds are even more scarce, if that's possible. But now, after the first rains, things start to get going. The birds become a little bit more broody, and they'll start lining the nests with leaves and material things.
So dis nou al 'n halfuur verder en ons het nou by die eerste nes aangekom en ons gaan nou kyk of daar hopelik enige bromvoëlaktiwiteit is. Maar ons kan nie die groot kamera daarin kry nie, so ek vat 'n klein kameraatjie en tipies navorsing in die middel van niks en nêrens nie en hier's 'n paar buffels in die omgewing, so ons moet versigtig wees.
As gevolg van 'n tekort aan die groot bome met geskikte holtes vir neste in bromvoëls se natuurlike habitat, maak navorsers reeds 'n geruime tyd van kunsmatige neste gebruik.
In this area, nesting sites are very few and far between. So in the whole of the APNR, which is about 200,000 hectares, we have about 4 natural nests. So, I mean, 4 natural nests in 200,000 hectares is next to nothing. Of those 4, there's only 1 that gets used. So without the artificial nest, the birds just would not be able to breed.
Gedurende die broeiseisoen besoek Kyle en Carrie gereeld die neste om vas te stel of daar enige aktiwiteit is.
Okay, so hier's blare al klaar, dit lê onder die blare. And how long does it take them to put that amount of leaves in?
A few days, they'll walk around the bush here, and then they'll just pick all the leaves, and then when they jump into the nest, they'll kind of just shake them off.
Bromvoëls bly in groepe van 2 tot 12 individue in natuurlike grotte of boomholtes. Die groep bestaan gewoonlik uit 'n dominante broeipaar en meestal manlike helpers wat die broeipaar help om die gebied te verdedig en die kuikens te voer. Slegs die dominante mannetjie en wyfie paar.
So een van die maniere om bromvoëls te bestudeer is nou natuurlik om kameras in die neste in te sit. So what do you plan on filming? What do you see with your cameras?
Well, we put them up firstly just because the ground hornbill breeding is such a long affair. It's about 130 days in total. So if you want to get information about it, you can't sit here for 130 days. So we put these cameras up, and it just gives us a little bit of insight into the private lives of the birds around their breeding.
Dit is juis op een van die kamera-opnames waar 'n aggressiewe bromvoël gewys het hoe hy korte mette maak met 'n versteekte kamera en dit totaal vernietig het.
That was very unfortunate. They don't like new things at their nesting sites.
But are these birds then aggressive birds?
Yeah, I would say to an extent. I mean, most of the killing and hunting and things is done with their beaks, so they have this extreme force behind them that they can use when necessary. But whether they're aggressive or not, I mean, it's up for debate.
Bromvoëlwyfies lê gewoonlik 1 tot 3 eiers, maar meestal 2. Die eiers word tot 5 dae uitmekaar gelê. Teen die tyd dat die tweede eier uitbroei, is die ouer kuiken al reeds die gunsteling en die tweede kuiken staan nie 'n kans op oorlewing nie. 'n Versteekte kamera het 'n paar jaar gelede vir die eerste keer die raaisel opgelos van wat met die tweede kuiken gebeur. Kamera-opnames het die gruisame waarheid gewys van wat werklik in die nes gebeur. Die ma ignoreer doeteenvoudig die tweede kuiken. Sy voer hom glad nie, maak nie saak hoe hard hy skree nie. En uiteindelik, as hy te swak is om aan te gaan, vreet sy hom op.
The cameras, while adds to my other side of my study, which is looking at feeding rates and what they bring and things. But we also get this information on what the calls are happening at the nest. So we get all these unusual calls that most people never see because they're so rare and only happen around the nesting site.
By die derde nes was daar aktiwiteit. Ongelukkig het die wyfie bromvoël uit die nes gevlieg voordat ons haar kon sien. Maar met 'n bietjie vernuftige speurwerk het ons die groep agtervolg en die groepie 'n entjie van die nes af gekry.
Dit lyk soos 3 volwassenes, maar hulle is skrikkerig vir die kar, so hulle het nou ingehardloop in die bos in. En dit lyk of hulle nou besig is om kossies bymekaar te maak en so aan. Maar ek is so bly ons het hulle gekry.
As gevolg van bromvoël se goeie sig en gehoor en die feit dat hulle so skie is, kon ons ongelukkig nie nader gaan nie en moes ons hulle van 'n afstand dophou.
What predators do they have?
It's mostly in this area. It's mostly leopard. When they're smaller and they're in the nest, it'll be baboons and genets as well, but predominantly cats. Yeah.
Voëls roep en chirp nie net sommer vir die lekker nie. Kommunikasie speel 'n baie belangrike rol in hulle oorlewing. Nou Kyle se navorsing kyk hoeveel bromvoëlroepe daar is en waarvoor dit gebruik word.
Bromvoëls is bekend vir hul ikoniese roepe wat veral vroeg in die oggend en laatmiddag gehoor kan word.
What does your vocalization research entail?
So most of my vocalization research is just looking at how the birds communicate and how many different calls they have and what their purposes are.
And is it just one call or a variety? What have you found?
So far we've identified six different calls, all for different purposes. So the first one which we found is this chorus call, which sounds a little bit like this.
Okay.
So these calls are generally 4 to 6 note calls. Then we have the contact calls. So that's a 2 or 3 note call, and I mean it can be done long distance or close distance. So when the birds are often walking through the grass, they'll be communicating with this call. So when they're walking through the grass, they're walking head down most of the time, so it kind of keeps them from wandering off, you know.
Yes.
It makes sure that they're all still in the group while
So
they're
it's
moving
like,
through the bush.
I'm here.
Exactly.
I'm still here.
Yeah. The next call which we have is the excitement call. Then there is an alarm call, which is much more of a harsh grunt kind of call. So you'll actually see from this video, this hornbill's got a hair in its beak, and something gets seen and they start alarm calling, and you'll see this bird actually immediately move away. We then have the begging call, which is just like when the female's sitting in the nest and the group arrives, then she'll sit there and she'll beg for food until they come and actually feed her. Yeah, so that's that begging. It's just like a whine almost. There is another call, but it's a distress call, which is not something that we will be able to record at all.
Yes, fair enough, because that would be in a predation situation.
Exactly, yeah.
So how many calls have you recorded up to now?
We try and get as much as we can. We've got these cameras up for the majority of the breeding season, so it's going through a lot. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of videos. It's less about time and more about the behavior that they're doing during that and how much of that we have.
Kyle analiseer die verskillende roepe met behulp van tegnologie wat klankgolwe meet en waarmee klankkundiges in Frankryk om help.
Last year I took a trip to France at the University of Paris-Saclay. They've got a very special team there that focuses specifically on bioacoustics, so analysing sound and vocalizations in a variety of animals, all sorts of animals. So I went there and they taught me everything that I need to know, and they're helping me the whole way, like with everything. And yeah, they showed me how to do it, and we're working closely with them to look deeper into these vocalizations.
But how does this research contribute to species in the end?
So with ground hornbills at least, they are endangered in South Africa, and most of the conservation at the moment is based around the releasing of groups. So to do this, they have to artificially form groups of birds. And to do this, the birds themselves need to get along, and communication is key for everything, let alone survival. In terms of territory defense, birds advertise and defend territories based on their vocalizations. So understanding the vocalizations and understanding which individuals are actually contributing towards this territory defense and communication is actually crucial for their survival.
Die broeisukses van bromvoëls word deur verskeie omgewingsfaktore beïnvloed, onder andere reënval en temperatuur. En dit is waar Carrie se navorsing inkom.
Carrie se navorsing kyk na die effek van hoë temperature in kunsmatige en natuurlike neste op die groei en fisiologie van bromvoëls.
I'm looking at how high temperatures might affect nesting growth and how that might affect the actual ground hornbill's success in the future with the warming climates.
So how do you measure the temperatures? There's a thermometer up there.
Yeah, we have these little eye buttons that we put in the nest when the birds are breeding, and that stays up for the duration of the time they're breeding. And that records the temperature inside the nest every hour.
Okay.
Yeah, so then we get an idea of what's happening inside of the nest as well as the ambient temperatures outside of the nest. So we can see that temperature difference.
So does your research go hand in hand?
It does, exactly like that. We both use the camera trap footage, and we're both looking at climate changes but in a different way. Kyle's looking at the group behaviour and I'm looking directly at what's going on with the nestling, what stresses it undergoes in the nest.
Op die oog af lyk bromvoëls maar lomp en koddig. Maar hoe meer 'n mens van hierdie spesies uitvind, hoe meer sien 'n mens dis intelligente diere met 'n baie rare oorlewingsstrategie. So dit maak sin dat hulle 2020 se voël van die jaar is. En dit is danksy navorsing soos Kyle en Carrie se wat ons kan help om hierdie spesies van uitwissing te red. En wie sou nou kon raai dat bromvoëls eintlik so baie het om vir mekaar te sê?